The lights in the studio dimmed slightly as the band wrapped up its intro, the audience clapping in rhythmic anticipation. A hush fell over the crowd, then a sudden burst of applause erupted as Jimmy Kimmel announced, "Please welcome Elon Musk." The camera cut to the side stage, where Elon walked out with a steady, deliberate pace. Unlike his usual smirk or slight grin, tonight his face was firm, nearly emotionless, his eyes scanning the crowd and lights, calculating. His hands were tucked into the pockets of his jet-black blazer, matching his plain black shirt underneath a minimalist look that contrasted sharply with the brightly lit, cheer-heavy atmosphere of late-night television. As Elon approached the guest chair, the applause began to lose its natural rhythm, replaced by awkward claps from unsure hands. There was no smile, no wave. Kimmel extended a hand, half smiling, trying to maintain the light energy of the show. Elon took the handshake, but briefly, without eye contact. He sat down, not waiting for Kimmel's invitation, his posture composed yet commanding. The energy on set dipped just slightly, noticeable only to those tuned into the vibe of live broadcast moments. Kimmel tried to recover quickly, his signature smirk returning as he leaned forward. "Well, Elon, I can already tell this is gonna be interesting." He chuckled softly, expecting a reaction. Elon didn't blink, no smile, no acknowledgement, just a silent stare that said he was not there for jokes tonight. The audience giggled awkwardly, unsure whether it was part of the act or something more real unraveling. Attempting to lighten the mood, Jimmy pulled a joke from his cue cards. "So, you arrived in a Tesla, right? Or did you beam yourself here from Mars?" The crowd laughed, but Elon remained still, then replied coolly, "Does your team write all your questions? Or is the comedy I generated too?" The laughter stopped. The silence was brief but deafening. Kimmel blinked, taken aback, trying to play off the remark, but Elon's deadpan delivery had thrown the rhythm of the segment off completely. "Okay then," Jimmy said with a forced chuckle, tapping his desk. "Tough crowd, or just tough guest?" The audience gave a few polite chuckles. Elon turned his gaze to the audience momentarily, then back to Kimmel. "You wanted me on this show. I assume you wanted dancers, not rehearsed bits." That line cut through the room like a blade. For the first time, even the band members in the corner appeared unsure whether to smile or look away. The usual safety net of late-night banter had frayed within minutes. The camera caught a quick close-up of Jimmy's face, his smile just a bit tighter, his eyes glancing briefly to the stage director off-camera. Elon crossed one leg over the other, resting an arm on the chair, owning the space like a man unfazed by showbiz pressure. There was a confidence in his stillness that clashed with the kinetic buzz of television production. The tension was electric, and it was only the beginning. Jimmy shuffled his cards slightly, clearly trying to regain control of the atmosphere that had slipped through his fingers. The audience, though still watching with curiosity, had grown quieter, their usual enthusiastic energy replaced with an almost uncomfortable tension. Elon sat unbothered, his fingers lightly taping the armrest of the chair as if counting seconds. Kimmel leaned forward and gave a tight smile. "So, Elon," he began, voice calm but cautious, "you've made a lot of headlines lately. X, formerly Twitter, has been, let's say, very lively under your leadership." The crowd chuckled lightly, but Elon didn't. He raised an eyebrow. "And what do you think of those headlines?" Elon asked, his voice low but firm. "Are they lively, or are they a reaction to free speech being uncomfortable?" Jimmy, caught a little off guard by the immediate counter-question, cleared his throat. "Well, I think it's more about how people perceive your platform. You know, some say it's become more chaotic, less moderated, a place where hate speech can thrive." The room tightened again. Elon didn't flinch. "That's what mainstream media wants you to believe," Elon responded, "and ironically, you're part of that media, aren't you, Jimmy?" The audience gave a mix of gasps and murmurs. Jimmy tried to smile through it, lifting his eyebrows in a theatrical way. "Okay, so now I'm the villain, Elon, come on. This is a comedy show." Elon leaned in slightly. "Exactly. It's a comedy show, but it's also watched by millions, and people trust it. You use humor to shape public opinion. Don't pretend that doesn't come with responsibility." The audience, sensing the shift, stayed silent. Jimmy opened his mouth, closed it, then gestured vaguely with his hands. Look, I'm just asking questions people are curious about. I don't write the headlines, Elon Musk responded quickly, but you pick which ones to repeat. You're not neutral. You never were. That hit landed hard. Kimmel blinked, clearly annoyed now. So what are you saying? That I'm part of some grand conspiracy against you? Elon chuckled. Finally, not just me. Anyone who doesn't align with the narrative. You joke about Trump, about Rogan, about me, but never about those who pull the real strings. There was a visible shift in Jimmy's posture. He leaned back slightly, his fingers tapping his desk now, lips pursed. All right, I didn't know we were going full InfoWars night, he said, attempting to inject humor again. Elon replied with calm precision, it's not about conspiracy theories, Jimmy, it's about truth, and the truth is, you're afraid to offend the people who sign your checks. That statement silenced even the backstage crew. One camera operator subtly zoomed in on Elon's face, capturing the unshaken expression of a man who seemed to have expected this very confrontation. Jimmy gave a strained smile, trying to salvage the mood. Okay, let's talk rockets or electric cars or Mars. Something fun. Maybe. Elon tilted his head. Isn't truth fun anymore? The crowd didn't know whether to clap or stay silent, so a few did both. Scattered and hesitant. Jimmy, now clearly agitated, adjusted his microphone and said, you know, Elon, some people tune in to laugh and unwind, not to hear lectures about media control. Elon shot back instantly. And some people tune in hoping you'll ask a real question instead of hiding behind a punchline. That was it. The atmosphere in the room had completely transformed. This was no longer a light-hearted celebrity guest segment, it was an ideological standoff broadcast live. Elon shifted slightly in his seat, his eyes never leaving Jimmy's face. There was a sharp silence in the room now, thick with anticipation. The audience, once warm and laughing, now sat in stunned stillness, unsure if they were watching a bull performance or a real-time meltdown. Jimmy tried to press forward, his voice a bit sharper, a bit less playful now. All right, he said, so if I'm such a puppet, why did you agree to come on the show in the first place? Elon's expression didn't change. His voice was calm, almost eerily so. Because people deserve to see behind the curtain. This show, it pretends to challenge power, but it serves it. There was a pause. Jimmy looked stunned, almost amused, almost insulted. Wait, he said, trying to regain footing. So now you're saying I'm not just a host, I'm what, a tool of the establishment? Elon leaned forward, just a little, enough to draw the camera closer. You're not a comedian, Jimmy, you're a PR agent. The words hit like a slap across the face. Gasps rippled across the audience. Even the camera crew could be seen freezing for a second, unsure whether to zoom or cut. Jimmy blinked fast, his mouth opening slightly, caught between a comeback and shock. Wow, he finally said, that's harsh. Elon didn't smile. Not harsh, just true. You crack jokes about billionaires while sitting across from them. You mock politicians, but only the ones it's safe to mock. You're not edgy. You're packaged rebellion. The studio lights suddenly felt brighter, harsher. Sweat beaded slightly on Kimmel's forehead as he reached for his mug, taking a sip just to give himself a second to think. The audience didn't laugh. They didn't cheer. They were watching something unprecedented, a guest completely flipping the script, not for attention, but seemingly out of conviction. Jimmy put his mug down, tapping the rim with his fingernail. So what exactly are you trying to prove here, Elon? That you're the only one who sees the truth? That you're the last real one left in Hollywood? Elon shook his head. I'm just not pretending. That's the difference. I can be flawed, controversial, even wrong, but I'm not fake. You, on the other hand, deliver monologues approved by advertisers. There it was again. That icy truth. Elon kept swinging like a sword. Jimmy opened his mouth again, but Elon continued before he could speak. You think roasting Trump makes you a rebel? You think mocking the right makes you dangerous? You're just reading from a different script, written by the same people. The weight of the words sank into the room like wet concrete. Kimmel leaned back, now visibly irritated. You really think you're the hero in this scenario, don't you? Elon stared back. I think you're pretending to be. A few members of the audience clapped, unsure if they were supporting Elon's honesty or just reacting to the tension. Either way, it made Jimmy flinch slightly. "Well, Elon, I guess thanks for the TED Talk. Next time, maybe bring a rocket or a car so we can talk about something people actually enjoy." Elon simply replied, "They enjoy honesty too, even if it makes them uncomfortable." The air was thick now, too heavy for jokes, too strange for casual banter. The interview had completely unraveled, turning into a live, unscripted confrontation no one had anticipated. Jimmy sat in a moment of stunned silence, his usual quick wit nowhere to be found. The cards on his desk remained untouched, forgotten. Elon sat like a statue, calm and unmoved, his words still hanging heavy in the air. The audience, unsure whether to applaud or recoil, murmured quietly among themselves. A few nervous chuckles escaped, but most people were just staring, their eyes darting between host and guest. Jimmy cleared his throat, adjusting his tie, his tone now tight and defensive. "You know, Elon, we bring guests on to have a conversation, not an ambush. Maybe this wasn't the right place for your truth campaign." Elon leaned forward slightly, his voice low but razor-sharp. "Maybe you shouldn't invite people just to make them play along with your script." "I'm not a product placement, Jimmy." The crowd gasped again, this time louder, and a few claps, possibly sarcastic, possibly sincere, echoed across the set. Jimmy glanced off stage, his smile finally dropping completely. For the first time that night, he looked genuinely uneasy. From the corner of the stage, the show's floor manager made a slight motion with his hand, a nod to the camera crew, but to someone just out of frame. Then, in a surreal twist, a man wearing a headset and holding a clipboard walked calmly onto the stage. He whispered something into Jimmy's ear, placing a hand on his shoulder. Jimmy nodded, his jaw tight. Elon's eyes followed the exchange with quiet amusement, almost like he knew this was coming. Kimmel turned toward Elon again. "All right, well, it looks like we're gonna take a quick break, just to reset the energy here." Elon smirked. "You mean censor the energy?" A couple of staff members appeared beside Elon's chair. They weren't aggressive, they weren't security in black suits, just two professional, poised individuals in headsets, quietly asking Elon to come backstage for a moment. Elon looked at them, then looked at Jimmy, and said, "So this is what happens when the wrong person tells the truth?" He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate. The microphone attached to his lapel was still live, his voice crisp in every speaker across the room. "They don't argue with you, they escort you." As he began walking toward the edge of the stage, he paused, turned slightly, and with a flick of his hand, unclipped the mic from his collar. He let it fall. The thump of the microphone hitting the glossy floor rang out across the studio, a raw, unedited sound that was not supposed to be there. The audience collectively gasped again, and some instinctively reached for their phones, trying to record what was clearly becoming a moment that wouldn't be replayed on television. The camera crew scrambled to figure out what to do. One camera panned away, another zoomed out. The band remained silent. Elon walked toward the exit with the same unhurried calm he entered with, flanked by the two crew members who didn't touch him once. He didn't look back. Jimmy sat at his desk, frozen, eyes locked on the floor, fingers drumming nervously. He looked toward the producers again, clearly waiting for a signal, a decision, anything. In the control room, that decision came quickly. The feed cut to an emergency commercial break, a jarring shift to a smiling family enjoying cereal, as if what just happened hadn't shaken the very foundation of the show's carefully controlled structure. Backstage, Elon was seen, thanks to a smartphone clip later leaked online, shrugging off a producer's attempt to smooth things over. "You brought me here to entertain your audience," he said, "but they got something real instead. You should thank me." That clip would go viral within minutes, launching a digital wildfire the show couldn't contain. Hashtags exploded, debates erupted, but inside that studio, in that moment, all that was left was the echo of a fallen mic and the uncomfortable silence of a show that had just lost control. The broadcast returned from commercial with a jolt. There was no applause, no band, no warm laughter, just Jimmy Kimmel sitting alone at his desk, visibly rattled, a weak smile stretched across his face like a mask barely holding together. The energy in the room was eerily still. He looked into the camera, cleared his throat, and said, "Well, That was something. He tried to chuckle, but even that came out awkwardly, his voice thin, like a man trying to joke through a gut punch. Elon Musk, ladies and gentlemen, a broken bar taking honesty to a whole new level. The audience responded with nervous laughter, unsure if they were allowed to move on. Jimmy shuffled the papers in front of him aimlessly, filling time, filling space. We're gonna skip ahead on the show a bit, he added, gesturing to the side as if there was some grand plan being followed, but everyone could feel it. The rhythm was gone, the script had collapsed, and reality had shoved its way onto the soundstage. No one was clapping, even the applause sign seemed embarrassed. Backstage, Elon was already walking toward the building's rear exit, his coat over his shoulder, phone buzzing endlessly in his pocket. A young intern tried to offer him water, but he declined with a soft shake of his head. Outside the studio, a small crowd had already gathered. News vans were pulling up, tipped off by someone inside. A few security guards formed a perimeter, but it wasn't chaos, it was curiosity. People wanted to know what had just happened. They wanted to see the man who had, in less than 15 minutes, turned a late-night institution into a live firestorm. Back inside, Jimmy sat quietly during the next segment, trying to push through, but the momentum was lost. A pre-recorded comedy sketch was aired instead of the next guest, as producers scrambled to recover the show's flow. Meanwhile, Twitter had exploded. #Kimmel vs Musk, #Late Night Meltdown, and #McDrop were trending globally. Clips were already going viral. Elon's brutal quote, "You're not a comedian, you're a PR agent," was being shared with subtitles and dramatic background music. The raw McDrop moment had been turned into memes, reaction videos, and TikToks in minutes. News outlets picked it up fast. Political pundits, tech influencers, and culture commentators were already calling it the most unfiltered late-night moment in years. Some hailed Elon as a truth teller, others accused him of arrogance, but no one was silent. Even rival hosts were tweeting cryptic reactions. Elon himself, minutes after leaving the building, tweeted a single word, "scriptless." That post alone received over 2 million likes in an hour. Back on set, Kimmel tried to maintain professionalism, but the weight of the encounter lingered. He eventually addressed it again before signing off. "We had a spirited discussion tonight," he said, his voice tired. "Not what we expected, but that's live TV." The audience clapped, not out of enthusiasm, but out of obligation. The show ended without the usual jokes, without the usual energy. It was clear to everyone, something had changed. Behind the scenes, staff members whispered to each other, wondering if they would be allowed to edit the online version, to cut out what had just transpired. But it was too late. The internet had already preserved every frame, every word. Elon Musk had hijacked the show, not with anger, not with stunts, but with sheer unfiltered boldness. In an era where everything on TV feels manufactured, this moment had broken the pattern. And no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. Later that night, news anchors on different networks debated what had happened. Was it a media takedown, an ego clash, or just one man refusing to play along? In every conversation, one thing was clear: it wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It was a broadcast earthquake, the kind people don't forget, the kind that marks the end of pretending and the beginning of asking real questions.